Hi, today we're going to take a look at two parts of a plant. First part is called the xylem, and the second part is called the phloem. And both of these are part of the vascular parts of the plant. So they work very similarly to veins and arteries in the human system. Only instead of moving the particles that veins and arteries remove, the xylem and phloem are going to be moving water and other particles through their system. So we're going to take a look at that today. As I mentioned, we're going to look at those two pieces: the xylem, which tends to be more on the inner part of the stem, and the phloem, which happens to be closer to the epidermis or outer part of the stem. And we see here, the fact that we're moving water in and out from the root hairs through the root system into the xylem, up against gravity, over to the phloem, where it continues to carry and transport that water through the leaves of the plant. Again, if we're looking at the micrograph here, we can see the epidermis is on the outside. We're going to have the xylem on the inside, and then a separation, and then the phloem out along closer to the outside of the plant. Again, both of these are going to be, transporting water, the xylem, water in, as well as other nutrients, taking it from the roots of the plant out to the plant tissue, and the phloem, which moves the sugars that are made in the leaves of the plant and takes them then to other plant tissue. Again, if we're looking at this, you'll notice that the xylem and phloem are separated by tissue called cambium. And then we see the cortex of the epidermis on the outside of the plant here, separated by, there's some fibers. So water's coming from the root hairs into the xylem, over across the cambium to the phloem, and back down that way. Water, sugar, other nutrients, things like that are being moved through there. Now you'll also notice these kind of what I like to look at is almost a corkscrew, which are called the lignin. The lignin are, kind of ring structures or helical structures. They almost very much resemble the DNA molecule here. And their main job is support, right? They're going to keep the stem of the plant upright, almost serve as almost a skeleton inside the vascular tissue of the plant. These vessels, again, keep everything moving. Water flows upward, as I mentioned, against the flow of gravity. So we got kind of a lot going on. Water in through the root hairs, up the xylem, over to the phloem, and back down. So we have this constant movement. Now, one of the things that IB is definitely going to ask you about, move myself over here, is that you're going to have to be able to draw the cross section here of a stem. So the inner open portion is what's called the pith. And then we see that we have the xylem, of course, towards the inside of the plant, and the phloem along the outside of the plant. And then this would be the epithelial portion of the plant itself. We're looking over here at the micrograph. Again, the xylem is more towards the inside of the stem, and the phloem is going to be out toward the outside, next to the epidermis of the plant here. But this would be a fair game question on the IB exam. Draw the internal structure of the vascular system of the stem of a plant, and you would have to reproduce something very much like this. Just another micrograph picture. We see the lignin, which give structure to the plant. And again, everything just keeps moving in one direction, very much like the veins and arteries in our own system. Now, the xylem has the the cohesive properties that water brings to the table. Remember, water tends to stick to each other, the molecules, and that's a very good thing because our water has to travel, again, against gravity up into the stem of the plant. So those water molecules will cling to each other so that they can be pulled up in a continuous stream moving upward. If there's water available in the ground, then that plant is going to pull that water up, and it will keep that stream moving. So here again is our plant. Here's our roots, and of course all these roots have root hairs that are associated with them. Our water has to, again, move against the flow of gravity, so up here to the stem where we have, that adhesion where the water is sticking to itself, and moves up where it will then transpire out the stomata or pores of the plant. Again, here's our tree. Against gravity, call this capillary motion. The water has to be pulled up through the stem. Adhesion becomes a property that is very important as that water gets pulled upwards. So cohesion really prevents the column of water from breaking, right? We don't want our stem to become so coarse that it would break. This is just another look. We see soil particles. We see the movement then of water towards the xylem, which is part of the vascular system, and that water then gets pulled upwards. Just another look. Again, the xylem more toward the pith or inside of the plant, and the phloem on more towards the outside of the plant itself. Here's a micrograph look. Here's our root system, and you could see the tiny root hairs coming off the roots, and those, of course, increase the surface area and allow the root system to take in more water. So it's able to absorb more water in that particular way.